U.S. President Donald Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping are holding their highly anticipated phone call. This, according to Chinese state media. Details of those talks yet to be disclosed, but the fate of TikTok, that's the widely popular video app in the U.S., likely to be discussed. Those talks are top of the agenda, as well as the FutureChina Global Forum right here in Singapore. CNN's Henry Yin caught up with Professor Alfred Skipke. He's director of the East Asian Institute at NUS, on the sidelines of that forum. Henry started by asking how the Xi-Trump phone call and any subsequent deals could affect Southeast Asian economies.
The biggest thing is it would manage expectations and it would help in terms of investments. There are a lot of investments that are currently on hold because nobody knows what the ultimate outcome will be. So a trade deal would facilitate, provide confidence to business to then make decisions of where to move toward. Changing supply chains, potentially, and I think that will be very positive.
You mentioned actually in one of the sessions that we are seeing a trend that shifting from global efficiency to regional resilience. So with the rising tensions among big powers, how should companies in this part of the world navigate and adapt to that kind of changing trend?
I think for companies it's super important to recognize that we are at the end of the day moving more toward blocks, bolstered by free trade agreements, but they will be more bilateral. So that means that you have to focus and manage your risks accordingly. Global companies might have to think about doing business in particular countries, replicating their operations and their supply chains. That's of course not as efficient as just having one global company focus on the entire world, but that is that resilience that companies probably want to have.
Mm-hmm. And one of the hot discussed topics these days, de-dollarization, but you believe with the rise of stable coins and more popularity of cryptocurrencies, we are actually seeing a trend of dollarization. Could you please elaborate on that more for us?
I think it is important to recognize that we have two different forces. I think with the U.S. now fully embracing crypto and stablecoin and the Genius Act, there is this tendency for potentially more dollarization. We've already seen that in some countries, not so much in this part of the world, but in some other countries where there's a tendency to issue stablecoins linked to the U.S. dollar. That is one tendency. But of course, many countries are also thinking of how can we ring fence and ensure that we are less reliant on the U.S. dollar, given that tensions are rising. So we're moving toward a fragmented world, and that is, there is of course push for the internationalization of currency. That includes the RMB. But I think the real action we're going to see on the payment system side. This is sort of like the plumbing, the financial plumbing that underpins many of the activities. And what we here see is different countries are using different technologies that initially will not be compatible across systems.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the meantime, we are seeing China is trying to cut its excessive capacity in the industrial sector. At the same time, people start to worry about how about the investment in the AI sector, because that sector is booming. So is that a concern for you that we could be facing the same overheating investment problem in the AI sector as well?
No, this is sort of like China's great benefit, but also a major challenge. China is able to mobilize resources almost instantaneously, given that there is now a push for technology. Capital is moving into areas of technology, but also human capital. If you're at a university today, you're basically giving up your previous career, you're moving into STEM. So we're going to have a large number of universities university graduates. I think the Chinese government is very much aware of it and wants to avoid that each local government is competing with itself, with their neighbors, to be in the space of AI. But system-wise, that will be very, very difficult to manage. What is super important is that China strengthens its mechanisms to allow and potentially force companies to exit. I think the problem is, including in sectors such as EV, that it's very difficult to get a company out of the business because you have soft budget constraint, local governments basically trying to keep companies alive, and that needs to be strengthened to ensure that only the fittest ultimately survive and to avoid overcapacity or a price war.